Now let's look at some test-taking tips. Read the full question. Folks, it's really important that you read the full question. Read the question carefully. If there's one tip I can give you that I think is more important than any other tip, it's read the questions carefully. Don't make assumptions. Read the question. The first time I took a securities exam many years ago, I made sure that I read questions more than once, and I've always done that. And I recommend that you do that. Read the question, look at your possible answers, and then go back and reread the question. Making sure you know what the question is asking is vitally important. In addition to reading the full question, I want you to read all the possible answers before marking your selection. I mean, you might read the question and say, oh, I know the answer is A, and you pick it. Well, A might be right, but if you'd bothered to look at B, C, and D, D was more right. So you got that wrong, not because you didn't know the material, but because you did a poor job managing the exam. Look for keywords. Look for keywords. Really big keyword is accept. Accept questions are really challenging. Accept questions take a question and turn it 180 degrees. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. As I read a question, I'm formulating an answer. And by the time I get finished with that question, I have an idea as to what answer I'm looking for. And when that word accept is thrown in there at the end, that takes that question, turns it 180 degrees, and it's not always a mental switch that's easy to make. So look for keywords and be ready to make that mental switch. Eliminate possible answers. It's usually pretty easy to eliminate, two answers right away. And then if you have to guess, you're only having to guess 1 out of 2 as opposed to 1 out of 4. Many times, not always, but many times the longest answer is the correct answer. Test writers like the long, wordy answers. Another thing, use a calculator. Don't try and do the math in your head. Don't try and do math in your head. You're going to be stressed as you go through this exam. And trying to do the math in your head, it's not a good idea. They'll provide you with a basic calculator. Use it. Huge. Avoid changing answers. Statistics tell us that the majority of the time when we change an answer, we change from correct to incorrect. I know a lot of people give the advice of, deal with the easy questions first, mark the other questions for review. If you have time left over, go back to them. I don't believe that's a strategy for success. Because when you go back to questions, you start changing answers. And most of the time, if you change an answer, you change from correct to incorrect. I say deal with the question as it's presented to you, answer the question, move on, and don't second guess yourself. The only time I would change answers is if I saw a later question that answered a previous question and I know I answered it wrong. Otherwise, I don't change answers. I recommend that you not. And manage your time. Pace yourself. Don't spend too much time on any one question. Don't spend too much time on any one question. Mark an answer. Guess if you have to. Mark an answer and move along. You don't want to spend too much time on one question, run out of time, and have to leave 5 questions blank, because those that you leave blank will be counted against you. Okay? So those are some test tips that I hope you will take to the exam with you. Congratulations! You made it. You got all the way through the SIE Edge. A lot of information there, a lot of great information that I hope will clear some things up for you. I want to talk to you a little bit longer about some things that I think are important to your success. One thing I want to talk about is don't get yourself caught up in why. A lot of people want to know the why to all of this information. This test doesn't deal with why. It deals with what, when, and how. That's what you need to know in order to be successful and pass the exam. What, when, and how. Don't get hung up on why. Test doesn't deal with why. Now, I've had people over the years tell me, well, if I don't know the why, I don't understand the what, how, and when, and I can prove that's wrong. If I ask you to walk over to the light switch in your room and flip that switch down, what would happen to the lights? They would go off. If you flip the switch back up, the lights would come on. You know how to make that happen. You know how to turn those lights on and off. What you probably don't know is why, when you flip that switch down or up, the lights go off and come back on. So you don't need to know the why. Folks, most of the information you need to learn to pass these exams, you'll never use in the real world. So let's just learn what we need to know in order to pass the test. The what, the when, the how, not the why. Also, I wish you could just watch these videos and be prepared for the exam. I really do, but you can't. I want to stress that you got to follow the Kaplan study calendar in preparing for the SIE exam. You've got to read a unit in the book. You've got to watch the unit videos. You've got to complete the unit QBank practice exams. You got to complete the checkpoint exams, the midterm, the practice, the mastery exam. You got to do the hard work. 2 to 3 hours a day, every day, for about 3 to 4 weeks, and you can be successful. That gives you a great chance of passing the exam. No guarantee, but a great chance of passing the exam if you spend 2 to 3 hours a day, every day in this material for 3 or 4 weeks. Are you going to have to sacrifice in order to prepare for this exam and pass it? Sure you are. But anything worth having is worth sacrificing for, and getting your securities license is worth having. So we're asking you to sacrifice, but folks, we're not asking you to sacrifice forever. We're asking you to sacrifice for 3 to 4 weeks. You can do that. I know you can. Listen, I want to wish you the best of luck. Study hard. Go take and pass your exam.